Today's story begins in England, where the central figure of this case was born. Malcolm John Webster was born on the 18th of April 1959 in Wandsworth, Greater London. Malcolm came from what many would describe as a respectable, well-to-do family. His father, Alexander Robertson Webster, had served as the head of the fraud squad within the Metropolitan Police, holding the senior rank of Detective Chief Superintendent. Malcolm's mother, Odette Blewett, was a former nurse. Together, they had 3 children: their eldest son, Ian, and twins, Malcolm and his sister Caroline. Odette gave up her nursing career to care for the children. The household was governed by strict discipline and a rigid sense of order. Malcolm's father imposed numerous rules, some of which were considered rather peculiar. It was said that when he used the bathroom, the rest of the family had to leave the house entirely. During such times, their mother would tell the children they were going out for a walk. At mealtimes, silence was mandatory unless their father directly asked someone a question. Both parents were described as emotionally distant and reserved. Major decisions were made solely by the father, who also controlled the family's finances. From an early age, Malcolm struggled socially. He found it difficult to form relationships with others, something that came far more naturally to his twin sister. Despite this, he craved attention and found a disturbing method of obtaining it. He would fake fainting spells. These episodes conveniently also helped him avoid responsibilities. Many came to believe Malcolm was seriously ill. Conditions such as asthma and epilepsy were suggested, although no formal diagnosis was ever made. Since he frequently complained of feeling unwell, doctors treated his symptoms with various medications rather than pursuing a definitive diagnosis. Eventually, as people grew used to his supposed ailments, Malcolm resorted to new tactics to gain attention. Malcolm Webster also developed a disturbing fascination with fire from an early age. As a child, he reportedly set several small fires, often to attract notice. His classmates began calling him Pyro due to his obsession. Though none of these incidents led to formal criminal investigations, they raised serious concerns about his psychological state. Unsurprisingly, other parents were alarmed and forbade their children from associating with Malcolm. From then on, most children actively avoided him. Things weren't easier at home either. Malcolm was frequently compared to his twin sister and often came off unfavourably. His parents, concerned about his difficulties socialising with peers, enrolled him in a private boys' school. They hoped that the environment might better support their son's development. At first, it seemed to work. Malcolm joined the drama club and even improved academically. With no prior reputation at the new school, he invented stories, claiming to come from a wealthy family, for example. But over time, his fabrications caught up with him, and his credibility waned once again. At the age of 15, Malcolm was withdrawn from the school, something he welcomed. He had no immediate plans to continue his education, but was eager to work. He took up various jobs, including rubbish collection, fruit picking, and retail sales. These roles were physically demanding and poorly paid, which left him disillusioned. At 17, prompted by his mother, Malcolm decided to train as a nurse. He began his studies and, to the surprise of those around him, entered his first serious relationship. Allegedly, his girlfriend became pregnant, but the couple felt unprepared for parenthood, and the pregnancy was terminated. Their relationship ended soon after. Following the breakup, Malcolm focused on his work and appeared to be doing well financially, or so his family believed. In truth, however, he had begun engaging in criminal behaviour. At the age of 17, while working as a trainee nurse at a care home in Bexhill, Malcolm stole money from elderly residents. A colleague later revealed that he had gained their trust, offered to manage their finances, and then siphoned off their money, spending it on nights out and golf clubs. He then devised a new business model, seducing older, often married, wealthy women. He would fabricate stories of hardship to manipulate them into giving him money, exploiting their sympathy. Despite his deceitful behaviour, Malcolm completed his nursing qualifications and held various jobs in the field. In the late 1980s, he took up a nursing position in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. On paper, it appeared to be a fresh start, a prestigious overseas opportunity offering stability and career advancement. But what unfolded behind hospital doors was far more sinister. During his time there, 3 children with special needs died suddenly under Malcolm's care, all from unexplained cardiac arrests. The pattern quietly disturbed some of the staff, including a pediatric nurse named Elizabeth Brown. She later told investigators that Malcolm had left the hospital under a cloud and that some believed he had been experimenting on the children, possibly sedating them or interfering with their medications in dangerous ways. Autopsies were not conducted on the deceased children. This was largely due to the cultural and religious practices in the UAE at the time, where Islamic traditions strongly discouraged such procedures unless absolutely necessary. The absence of post-mortems made it extremely difficult to determine the exact causes of death. There was no formal inquiry, and Malcolm Webster faced no charges. Upon returning to England, Malcolm began a new chapter. He found work as a nurse and even developed a small social circle. At a party he attended, he met Clare Morris. Clare was born on the 26th of December 1961, making her 2 years younger than Malcolm. She came from a good, affluent family and had a younger brother named Peter. She was described as sociable, energetic, attractive, and confident. Malcolm was instantly drawn to her and approached her at the gathering. They quickly discovered they had things in common and seemed to connect effortlessly. The pair began seeing each other regularly. From the beginning, Clare's family had mixed feelings about Malcolm Webster. Her mother, Betty Morris, sensed that something wasn't quite right. Despite Malcolm's outward charm, she remained quietly uneasy. Clare's younger brother, Peter, was more trusting at first. He described Malcolm as intelligent and pleasant, perhaps even a little roguish, and admitted that he initially approved of the relationship. Malcolm's family, particularly his twin sister Caroline, spoke warmly of Clare. They described her as kind, genuine, and full of life, someone who was easy to like and who brought a sense of happiness into Malcolm's world. His mother shared a similar sentiment, saying that Clare was very much loved and appeared to have had a positive influence on her son. Malcolm and Clare were married on 3 September 1993 in a ceremony held in Aberdeenshire, Scotland. To their families and friends, it seemed like a joyous occasion. Clare looked radiant, and Malcolm played the role of the devoted husband with ease. Young, happy, in love, and financially secure, everything pointed to a long and prosperous future. But on the 27th of May 1994, less than 9 months after the wedding, tragedy struck. The couple were driving along a rural road, with Malcolm behind the wheel and Clare in the passenger seat. According to Malcolm, he had swerved suddenly to avoid a motorcyclist who was allegedly driving on the wrong side of the road. He claimed that he overcorrected and lost control of the vehicle, which ended up in a ditch. Moments later, and for reasons that remain unclear, the car went up in flames. Malcolm managed to escape, but Clare did not survive. Malcolm appeared devastated. He continually blamed himself for his wife's death. Visibly shaken, he spent a week in hospital under observation, complaining of pain. Yet medical tests revealed no significant injuries, and he was eventually discharged. At Clare's funeral, Malcolm wore a neck brace and spoke of ongoing pain in his neck, claims that were not supported by his medical records. On the day of Clare's burial, he could barely speak through his tears. Peter, Clare's brother, held Malcolm's hand in support, despite suffering from his own grief. After Clare's death, Malcolm received a £200,000 payout from her life insurance policy, a considerable sum at the time. He quickly spent the money on extravagant purchases, including a £30,000 yacht and a Range Rover. Some began to question the official story. Why hadn't Clare been able to escape the car, just as Malcolm had? An expert investigation confirmed that Malcolm had indeed swerved into the ditch, but found that the car had not been travelling at high speed, nor had the impact been particularly severe. The cause of the fire could not be established, another puzzling detail. When Malcolm called for help, he claimed that the vehicle was empty, despite his wife still being inside. Had he told the truth, emergency services might have arrived faster or given instructions to help rescue her. At the time, this was attributed to shock. But there was more. A close friend of Clare recalled a similar incident that had occurred shortly after the wedding. Malcolm had once again lost control of the car, ending up in a ditch. Fortunately, no one had been injured, and it had been dismissed as a minor accident. In hindsight, however, the parallels were disturbing. Despite the suspicious circumstances, no serious irregularities were officially identified, and life moved on. Not long after Clare's death, Malcolm began a secret relationship with Geraldine Oakley, a computer manager at the hospital where he worked. To colleagues, he appeared to be a grieving widower, slowly rebuilding his life. Behind closed doors, however, Geraldine began to notice unsettling behaviour. Malcolm would often speak about Clare's death in an oddly calculated manner, and on multiple occasions he asked whether there would be a second post-mortem examination. His fixation on the subject struck Geraldine as disturbing. Concerned, she confided in Dr. James Grieve, a consultant pathologist, and shared her growing suspicions. Eventually, Geraldine chose to end the relationship. Malcolm then moved to Saudi Arabia. In 1995, while living there, he struck up a friendship over the phone with a woman named Brenda Grant. They later met in person a few times, and Brenda later claimed that Malcolm had offered her illegal substances, an offer she refused. After his time in Saudi Arabia, Malcolm relocated once again, this time to New Zealand in the mid-1990s. In May 1996, at a dinner party in Auckland, he met Felicity Drum, a cancer nurse. Although Malcolm had once been a nurse himself, he was working as a computer specialist at the time. There was an immediate connection. Malcolm was attentive, charming, and emotionally expressive. Felicity, 3 years his junior, was intelligent, well-groomed, and had a lively personality. She later described Malcolm as empathetic, sociable, and open-hearted. He believed life was too short and wasted no time in proposing. They became engaged in January 1997 and married in April that year in Auckland. For their honeymoon, they travelled to the Bay of Islands, a picturesque spot known for its beaches and tranquility. But the honeymoon brought alarming signs. Felicity recalled drinking a cup of tea prepared by Malcolm and falling into a deep sleep that lasted 36 hours. She later experienced episodes of double vision and difficulty walking, usually after eating or drinking something her husband had provided. On one occasion, she slept for 18 hours. When she raised her concerns, Malcolm dismissed them as stress-related. Doctors were consulted, but no clear medical explanation was found. In the first months of their marriage, Felicity's health continued to decline. Blood tests showed abnormal liver function, results that might suggest excessive alcohol use, drug abuse, or medication overdose. But Felicity lived healthily, and none of those applied. Malcolm downplayed the results, yet remained a devoted husband, always cooking for her and preparing her drinks. The marriage was marred by a series of suspicious events, including several fires. One occurred at Felicity's parents' home, where the couple had been staying. Another took place in their holiday cottage. A third fire broke out in a house they were considering buying. These incidents unsettled Felicity, and she ultimately decided to take out a life insurance policy at Malcolm's suggestion. In 1998, the couple welcomed a son, whom they named Ned. From the outside, the family appeared happy. Malcolm seemed to relish fatherhood and was often seen doting on his son. In early 1999, they decided to buy a house in Auckland, but Malcolm kept delaying the payment, claiming that a bank transfer from the UK had not yet reached his New Zealand account. The final deadline for the payment was the 12th of February 1999. Facing a looming deadline to complete the purchase of their new home, Malcolm and Felicity set off for the bank. During the drive, Malcolm repeatedly complained about the car's steering. Without warning, the vehicle swerved violently across two lanes and landed in a ditch beside a cluster of trees. Felicity instinctively grabbed the steering wheel and found it responsive, casting immediate doubt on what had caused the incident. Fortunately, neither of them was hurt. Malcolm exited the vehicle and told his wife to stay inside. Felicity, however, ignored his instruction. She got out of the car to phone the bank, most likely to reschedule their appointment. A week later, the couple went on a trip together that included a picnic. During the journey, a minor argument broke out between them. Nothing serious. Malcolm even tried to diffuse the tension by handing Felicity a bottle of water so she could take a drink. Moments later, Felicity lost consciousness. She only came round several hours later, still in the car, now parked deep within a forest. She was woken by her ringing phone. It was her father, who had been unable to reach her and was worried. Malcolm happened to be outside the vehicle when Felicity stirred. Visibly shocked to see her awake, he climbed into the car and asked, agitatedly, how she had managed to regain consciousness. Felicity, utterly disoriented and confused, had no idea what had happened. Her head was spinning, and she didn't know where she was. But this was also the moment when a deep sense of fear took hold. She demanded that Malcolm take them home. Once back at the house and fully conscious, Felicity began to press her husband with questions. Why had they been in the middle of the forest? Why had she suddenly felt so ill after drinking the water? Malcolm, bombarded with queries, suddenly claimed he was experiencing chest pains and might be having a heart attack. He rushed out, supposedly to go to the hospital. When he returned later that day, he told Felicity that doctors had diagnosed him with leukemia. At this point, things took an even darker turn. Felicity's father, Brian, already wary of his son-in-law, grew increasingly suspicious and decided to investigate further. After receiving a tip-off from the family solicitor, Brian began digging into Felicity's finances. Together, he and Felicity searched through Malcolm Webster's possessions and found a key to a private mailbox. Inside were documents, including a bank statement showing that Malcolm had secretly transferred 140,000 New Zealand dollars from Felicity's joint account into a personal one in Aberdeen. Credit card statements also revealed that Malcolm was drowning in debt. These shocking discoveries prompted Brian to obtain a court injunction, legally preventing Malcolm from coming anywhere near their family home. Meanwhile, Malcolm vanished. He fled New Zealand, and only then did Felicity begin to fully grasp the extent of the betrayal. She underwent medical tests that confirmed what she had come to suspect. Her body contained high levels of sedatives she had never knowingly taken. As if by magic, all her symptoms disappeared the moment Malcolm left. Digging further, she accessed their shared email account and uncovered messages to an estate agent in the UK. In them, Malcolm described himself as a single father looking to relocate to Cornwall with his son. He was inquiring about properties and planning a move for the end of 1999. Felicity was stunned. Worse still, in the boot of the car her husband had hastily abandoned, she discovered a petrol canister. In that chilling moment, the truth crystallized. Malcolm had been planning to recreate the same circumstances as the death of his first wife, Clare. It was now clear to Felicity that what had happened to Clare was no accident, but a cold, calculated act of murder. She became convinced that, had it not been for her father's phone call in the woods, the car would likely have gone up in flames, with her inside. Sometime later, Felicity managed to contact Malcolm. When she confronted him and revealed that she knew he had tried to kill her, his response was as cold as it was terrifying. "You would have died happy." That heartless remark hit her like a bolt of ice. In that instant, everything she had feared but tried to suppress was confirmed. Malcolm hadn't simply lied, manipulated, or stolen from her. He had carefully and deliberately planned her death. For Felicity, it was a moment of devastating clarity. The man she had married and had a child with was capable of murder. After hearing those chilling words, Felicity reported everything to the police. When Felicity Drum finally revealed the full extent of what Malcolm Webster had done, he officially became a wanted man in New Zealand. In July 2000, New Zealand police issued 4 arrest warrants against him. The charges included arson, administering drugs, and stupefying his wife with intent to cause harm. But by then, Malcolm had already left the country and failed to appear in court. He was officially listed as a wanted fugitive in New Zealand. The warrants remained in force until his eventual arrest and trial in the United Kingdom. It later emerged that, in addition to the life insurance policy Felicity had knowingly taken out, Malcolm had secretly arranged 8 more, using forged signatures, for a total value of 1.9 million New Zealand dollars. His intentions were now unmistakable. What happened to Malcolm immediately after this remains unclear. What is known is that, in 2000, he returned to the UK. He confessed nothing to his family and simply resumed life as if nothing had happened. He found a new job, but, as ever, money was tight, and he once again began pursuing relationships with wealthy women. Malcolm Webster met Simone Banerjee in August 2004, when both began working at the Lawn and Islands Hospital in Oban, Scotland, he as a nurse administrator and she as a theatre manager. Their relationship quickly became romantic, and by early 2006, they were engaged, completely unaware of the dark truths Webster was hiding. Malcolm continued to claim he was seriously ill, even disappearing for a few hours at a time, saying he'd been at the hospital for treatment. He told Simone about the tragic accident involving his first wife, Clare, and would often close his eyes during scenes of car crashes or fires on television, claiming the images triggered traumatic flashbacks. Simone described him as caring and sensitive. They moved in together not long after meeting, and to the outside world they appeared to lead a normal life. What he failed to mention was that he already had a wife and child back in New Zealand, and that he was a wanted man there. Meanwhile, police had tracked Malcolm down. He was living openly in Aberdeen under his real name. Time passed, and it's possible Simone might never have discovered the truth, until the police contacted her. They warned her about the man she was engaged to, describing just how dangerous he truly was. Things escalated quickly. Officers informed Simone that Malcolm was still married to a woman in New Zealand and was suspected of murdering his first wife. In that moment, Simone's entire future with Malcolm crumbled. At first, she couldn't believe what she was hearing. She confronted Malcolm directly. Upon realizing the truth had caught up with him, he reportedly turned pale, packed his bags, apologized, and walked out. Malcolm Webster was arrested in July 2007 in Scotland following an extensive investigation known as Operation Field, which spanned several countries and involved over 1,000 interviews. He was charged with the murder of his first wife, Clare Morris, the attempted murder of his second wife, Felicity Drum, and attempting to bigamously marry Simone Banerjee in order to gain access to her estate. A second forensic examination of Clare Morris revealed she too had large amounts of sedatives in her system, the same drugs later found in Felicity's body. This explained why Clare had been unable to escape from the burning vehicle. Disturbingly, Webster had also been drugging Felicity even while she was pregnant. After what became the longest criminal trial in Scottish history involving a single defendant, Malcolm Webster was found guilty in May 2011 and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 30 years. Simone Banerjee later expressed relief, saying she felt fortunate to be alive. The trial had uncovered a chilling pattern of behavior: staging deadly accidents, administering drugs to incapacitate his victims, and manipulating romantic relationships, all for financial gain. Malcolm has been described as a thief, liar, and philanderer, and was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder prior to his trial. In December 2013, Webster applied to the Scottish Criminal Cases Review Commission to have his conviction and sentence reviewed. The initial review was expected to take up to 2 months, with a full review potentially taking another 8 months. However, As of February 2016, the SCCRC decided not to refer his case to the High Court, effectively rejecting his appeal. As of the latest available information, Malcolm Webster is serving his life sentence at Shotts Prison in Lanarkshire, Scotland. Clare was remembered by her loved ones as good company. She had the compassion and intelligence to bring light to everyone around her. Her family described her as kind, thoughtful, and deeply loved. Her absence left an unfillable void. When Clare's shockingly concealed murder was finally revealed, her brother Peter shared his relief that justice had been served and honoured Clare's memory, saying, "Today is a good day. Clare is greatly missed. She was good company. We were proud of Clare becoming a nurse." Let this story be told in her name, to honour her life, validate her suffering, and ensure that Clare is never forgotten. Thank you for listening. If you found this story meaningful, please consider following and turning on notifications. Stay safe and take care of one another.